Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekends with Amit. This is Krishanu, and today's subject is times of transition, equinoxes and solstices. If we look at anyone's life, we will always see that it doesn't flow in the same way. There will be changes, there will be transition. A lot of times, these transitions are forced. Some of the times, these transitions are done as an active measure. Some of the times these transitions are natural, that means outside of the physical body. Sometimes they might be inside, not the physical body. I'm talking about our bodies, because we cannot say that we are only the physical body. But all this needs a lot more explanation. And who best to explain all these things than our guests today, Professor Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisor. A very welcome to the show today. Subject is the times of transition, equinoxes and solstices. And I'm sure when these two learned people speak, they will talk more than just planetary motions. So over to you, Professor Goswami.
Thank you, Krishanu. Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is a good subject to speak about right at the time of an equinox. We are going through, of course, the autumn equinox, and this is transition from summer into autumn. And what's the difference? Well, we were expanding days and high temperature. And in what happens in the autumn in most countries, although global climate change has affected this some ways, but still, at some point, may not be at the exactly at the 21st of September, which is the day of autumnal equinox, but there will be a, transition to a season of relaxation, preparatory to a season where more or less uh, total rest in preparation again for rejuvenation. So autumn is a very special state. It is a gradual transition from the activities of summer to lessening of activities. Leaves drop away from uh, trees in many parts of the world in a very spectacular way of changing colors and all that. Um, and of course, dews appear on the grass every morning towards the end of the autumn. Uh, so it's quite spectacular in its own way. Uh, but of course, let's begin with the idea of transition itself. As Krishanu said, transitions can happen in our personal life as well as in the natural world. Natural world can teach us how to handle transitions in personal life as well. Like, for example, somebody dies. How do you handle it? For example, creativity. We talked about death and rebirth, winter and spring. That's a good metaphor for creativity. I always remember to encourage myself. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Those lines some poet wrote. Beautiful line. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Exactly. So when we go into deep hibernation in our creative process, what keeps us interested, curious, is that when it ends, will blooming, flowering happen in this tree that is myself? And similarly, in a time of grieving, somebody is passing, same question. After a reasonable period of grief, will I find love again in my life? This is the kind of question we ask. These transitions occur even during the night. From night is a beautiful phenomenon. Going to sleep is a beautiful phenomenon. You know, have you tried to know exactly what moment you fall asleep? You can't. But this is a good meditation, very good meditation. Try to be aware. How close can I come to the exact moment that I am falling asleep? Why? Because in those moments, but don't take this one very seriously, okay? This requires a lot of practice in meditation, otherwise your mind will get agitated and then you won't be able to sleep. So I don't advise this much at all. I advise the reciprocal one when you are waking up. Same process, but that one you don't have to be afraid of losing sleep. Sleep is very important, especially at advanced stages. So don't do this experiment unless you're really prepared, really good meditator. But the practice is the same from waking to sleep versus sleep to waking, which is that there is a period in which the brain waves, which are delta in sleep, very low frequency, about 1 hertz, but can they go into 1 to 3 hertz actually? Can they go into theta, 3 to 7 hertz? See, that's a situation which occurs in reverie. That's a situation that occurs in REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, during which we dream. That's the one that occurs also in deep creative contemplation. And that's the one which is most susceptible to creativity. And that's the one which is easy to get into, if you will, if you practice in autumn. The transition to autumn from summer to autumn is a very gentle one. And this transition, for example, sleep to waking is a gentle one. So during this period, which you can cultivate, waking from sleep, you can have lucid dreams. Very interesting ways to transit to waking life, because it is exactly the catching of the brain in its theta wave when there will be much relaxed thinking. Relaxed thinking is the creative thinking where unconscious and conscious join together and you have insights. Kind of a flow experience happens very readily. Lucid dreams. Lucid dreams are something that we can guide. You have a knot in your creative thinking, you can guide your mind into a play with the intuitive and the rational. Don't get into the rational too much because that will wake you up. Sort of let it be. This is what we mean by flow. The ego is there, but not enough to create a disturbance of the state. It's an art. You have to sort of practice it. Initially, we'll wake up quickly, and then you want. So same thing we do in the equinox. I will let Valentina do most of the talking, but I can introduce it this way. In the same way, we just gradually learn to be in a state which we know, in talking about the brain, researching the brain, we found out this is when the brain is in the pre-conscious, mostly. You're entering the pre-conscious. What was pre-conscious before, we're not experiencing in consciousness. We now have entered it and experiencing it in consciousness. We're actually collapsing the possibilities in that what was previously pre-conscious. So I'm much more alive in a sense, but I'm also much more creative. Quantum self is close to me, from where creativity comes. And this is the reason that we are emphasizing it. We can call it a twilight zone. That's another way of pointing out that in nature and in life we have these opportunities of examining ourselves in a new way, prepare for a new change. And this is how life should be taken. Creativity, changes, and times of regrouping. Valentina?
Yeah. Yes. Hello, everybody. And hello, Amit, Krishanu. I'm very happy that we can talk about this subject now. It feels very interesting. Like it feels really like a celebration. And it's easier to perceive it, for me at least, when I am in countries like where I'm now. I'm in Europe, in Romania, where we have all the 4 seasons. There are places in the world where there's only 2 seasons, or even kind of one already. And when we hear about solstice and equinox, we usually don't go into the esoteric meaning of such very important moments. They are privileged moments when you can, when you are a little bit in resonance with the earth, with Gaia, how it's called. And this kind of resonance with earth and with its cycles, it's really meant to make us healthy, really, in the highest understanding of that. So it's not just this idea that, not idea, the fact that solstice, we refer to the longest day or night, and when it's equinox, the day is equal with the night. Yeah, but actually you can think of them as eventually as universal symbols that are manifested from the galactic level up down to the cycles in our own being, as Amit and Krishanu said. And just a little bit of mention, I don't know now how we can take it or not, but there are ancient treaties that describe that there were in the past, there were made intelligent correlations between the way the ancient extraterrestrial civilizations even may have lived on the planet long ago, and this axis north-south, was oriented a bit differently. These ancient treatises say, and at that time there was not so much equinox and solstice, and later on, there was the conclusion in the wise people, that in order to create a proper evolutionary sense in everything that's happened, the cosmic harmony, this an inclination of the planet and certain cycles were appeared to ensure cycles of regeneration and evolution. Yeah. So now take it as you wish. Then this principle, the principle of equinox and solstice, actually is a holistic principle. So you can really look at it, as Amit was saying, even in ourselves. There are all the cycles that we have, the heartbeat, the brain pulse, and so on. And all this, we find them in outside of us as well. So it's a very complex cycle that is described in various traditions, and especially in the Vedic tradition. Everything is based on stages. It's creation, maintaining, there is a peak moment, and then there's the resorption or destroyal. And all these stages are beautifully described through equinox and solstices. And also, if you want, the equinox, the spring equinox, first of all, the spring equinox, so you can correlate it with the birth, the symbol of birth, the energy of the beginning. And then this increases gradually, the light amplifies. Yeah, the first spark of creation appears. You can even find the terms like eternal spring, eternal summer eventually. So eternity, don't take it in this way, but it's just to describe this energy of the beginning in this case. Yeah. So any process of creation, as Amit mentioned, creativity, can manifest only in when we speak about equilibrium between yin and yang. And we have in quantum science a bit of different interpretation about the yin and yang aspect. So, but creation is not done at extremes. It's when it's a state of equilibrium, and in the context of universal equilibrium, according to the movement of consciousness, according to God's will. Yeah. So when you think of a creation of an artist, when we create, when there's an authentic, genuine creation, this starts when these conditions of the spring equinox are fulfilled in our being. For example, the birth of a child, Also the conception, it can take place when there is this mysterious yin-yang equilibrium, or I had cases when I was able to help women to conceive when they managed to, for example, forgive and eventually reach this kind of equilibrium. There were all kind of cases, but it's all these moments are very special. It's also when you think of alchemy, before getting to the gold stage, there's a transformation to be done in our cells to reach that gold of our soul, So then after this beginning energy, the light starts to grow, the seed grows, the tree is taking various shapes, So if you think from March up to the summer solstice, that is in June, that tree is passing through different stages, it reaches to a maximum of light, of creation, the summer solstice, the longest day, the shortest night. So that's a maximum dominance, if you want, of yang energy, And after that, it's a gradual resorption and the reestablishing of a new equilibrium. So if you imagine a circle, at 12 o'clock, we have the spring equinox, Then if you go towards right, at 3 p.m., you have the summer solstice. At 6 p.m., the autumn equinox, 9 p.m., winter solstice, So the Vedas, again, they are saying that creation is the spring equinox, and then evolution and reaching the kind of peak, summer solstice, then resorption until autumn equinox, which is a necessary process, actually. So this autumn equinox, which is now, is different than the spring moment, because the spring one is the energy of creation, the energy of the beginning, the autumn actually is the celebration of what has been created. So you planted something in the spring, and you pick it up now in autumn, So the same in creation, same in our evolution. We start to ascend. There's this energy of the beginning that we have to be attentive, even in couple relationships. There's this energy of the beginning. You fall in love, and then you receive, and then all these are settling in your being. So this autumn equinox is that moment of contemplation when where you see how much you have received, So and the state, if you want, the secret of the autumn equinox is the state of contentment, being santosha in the Hindu tradition. So that state of being in gratitude. People in countryside, villagers, in various traditions, in these times of autumn equinox, they are having usually all kind of rituals, celebrations of gratitude, So all countries have this, from the Roman tradition to the Aztecs to the Mayas to the, they all have this moment of celebration full of gratitude, simply gratitude. So again, there's a peak moment, and you have the courage to admit that those fruits that you have fruits, you're rich, you have family, you have kids, you have knowledge, you have, all kind of things, health. So all this eventually in this kind of moment of equinox, you realize that actually all these things, they don't belong to us. So it teaches us that nothing really belongs to us. The only thing that belongs to us is our aspiration towards ourselves, and then suddenly you realize that everything belongs to you. So it's the mystery of autumn equinox, if you want, in the esoteric meaning. So from nothing belongs to me, I'm nothing, to all belongs to me, I am everything. And again, the key is to rejoice from everything that we have received, So it's an immense state of grace to be able to rejoice and celebrate in this way, no matter how much or how little we see, So it's important also in this kind of moments to, again, let go of past as much as possible, and our future projections, but to really live intensely here and now. There is even a meditation that we usually do in the peak, in the maximum of these moments, and in those meditations, which again, there are very special moments of transitions, or hiatus, they are called, we do them. We have a meditation group and we meet and we meditate together, also understanding what's happening exactly in these moments. And then it's interesting because again, it's whenever it's this kind of hiatus moments, you go through a 0 point somehow. I'll explain. So again, from the spring equinox, if you think of the zodiacal signs, is the energy of Aries, and then the summer solstice, we go towards Cancer, and then autumn equinox towards Libra, Virgo to Libra, So this moment, again, it's carrying the symbol of the two signs. If you know a little bit of astrology, so the Virgo is sacrificing for the Libra to show up. Yeah. So if we will put some pictures now. So the Virgo archetype, yeah, is represented by the woman, the Virgo at the zodiac. Yeah. So it's represented by a woman that carries golden um, wheat. So it's a symbol of abundance, which is representing the fruits of work. And Libra is a symbol of equilibrium. And the equilibrium actually between material and spiritual. So all this passing from Virgo to Libra means to also sacrifice your so-called chastity of the Virgo for the mysterious energy of the universal equilibrium, if you want. So going from abstinence, penitence, to experiencing everything on the middle path. So this autumn equinox is also the mystery of the middle path, if you want, when we understand that it's not about something that is just good or evil, or somebody that is poor or rich, or somebody smart or stupid. So all the extremes dissolve in this mysterious zero point of equilibrium, which is a moment of integration, if you want. And then what next? The next is the putting in practice. So again, what we have received from the divine, all the gifts that we really have, we need to reintegrate them in the universal circuit. But because whatever we keep and is not of use becomes just a burden eventually. So again, it is a paradox apparently, but how to walk on this middle path, and to develop the discernment that is needed while respecting the divine laws. So again, we have been given. And then using this middle path and discernment, we apply it. So again, it's also a resorption moment of giving back to God or to the world, what we have received. So you can, for example, focus on this question. What are my gifts? What has God given me, or however you call it. And what do I have to give? How do I serve the divine in my life? So that would be interesting to ask yourself in these kind of moments. All right.
That's a very, very interesting question. How do I serve the divine? It is like, if I rephrase this question in quantum terms, it might be, how do I align myself with the movement of consciousness? So now over to Professor Goswami to wrap up and add whatever you feel like.
Hello again. Okay, I'll dwell on sort of on this same question. What psychologists have been found, and this is partly in the Tibetan tradition, partly in the Indian tradition, partly the modern tradition, that we have in the human life two major times of transition. One occurs during the puberty years, at youth, like age 14, 15, it starts, and then it can go on for a while. Preferably we assume that by the end of 10 years, we would have a fairly good idea of what to do with adulthood. But of course, everything is delayed now because of the influx of information processing, too much social media. People literally take more time to get into these questions. But in previous times, people asked two questions during those times. Of course, the other major event in the teenage is sexuality. It kind of springs up all of a sudden. And then the meaning question, because we finally are prepared for asking the meaning question. What is the meaning of my life? What is the purpose of my life, of the universe? How do I fit in the overall schema that runs the universe? This kind of question. Of course, then when you grow up in a materialist society, the meaning is underemphasized because in materialism, meaning doesn't exist. It's all information. Information is the basic building block of the universe, try to say. Hard sell. I don't think people buy it yet completely, but still, when you live in such a culture, it's very difficult to get a complete grasp of the there is a drive that drives us towards meaning, but very difficult to hear it today. So people hear it at the midlife. That's the second time we have the transition. This time is sexuality is waning, so you have to sort of prepare. The winter is coming, sort of fall of human life, autumn of human life, right? Sexuality is stopping. But the other questions, this is where interesting things can happen. Meaning and purpose, they don't have to stop. There is no waning of it. Sexuality is a body phenomenon. But what remains after the body? This question comes up. What remains after the body is that there is another source of external stimuli, We only know about the sensory stimuli, but some of us hear also the extrasensory stimulus. And that's the archetypes. They come to us in the experience of intuition. So the autumn of our life, the midlife transition as they call, this is the time when we shift from the sensory to the extrasensory mode. Shift from the attachment more to the physical world into the attachment of, okay, what happens if I listen to the archetypal world? The world that gives us purpose, the world that gives us the highest meaning. What happens if I get engaged with creative approach, creativity in search of this, in the exploration of these archetypes, love, beauty, justice, truth, abundance, power. Those are old archetypes which I explored with the idea of security in mind before. Power and abundance and beauty, all in the service of, okay, how to make my youth better, the life of pleasure better. Now the scope has enlarged. How it is to love for love itself. The sexuality is dwindling. It no longer can be the impetus for love. How can I explore meaning for that universe of archetypes? Higher meanings. What happens to my life if I transition? This is the kind of question we ask. Now, amazingly, the spiritual cultures had some of this idea already figured out. What we now have is a very interesting uh, uh, integration of science and spirituality. Quantum science's greatest accomplishment is that it integrates science and spirituality. So, have incorporated the spiritual notion with the idea that science can give us. What is the process? We now know the creative process. We now know the drives that are important. In the olden time, people were a little bit confused. They underestimated constantly the role of the ego, the drive towards the ego, the drive to differentiate. No, the drive stays. That drive is important. Without that drive, we cannot stay in the mundane life. We need the mundane life because we constantly need to express the unknown in terms of the known. We constantly want to express the extrasensory in terms of what the sensory gives us, the hardware. We need to embody those archetypal ideals into our software, living software, so that we can live them. So in this way, a wonderful mixing together the flow of the four seasons, the flow of day and night into each other, the flow of everything that transits that you can think of, life and death. This flow plays a role in the entire human life, specifically at our youth, young youth, and at midlife. What a beautiful way to construct a life, and what a beautiful opportunity for us to live these transitions to the fullest extent. Thank you.
Ami,
Krishanu?
thank you so much, Professor Goswami, and of course, Dr. Valentina Onisor. We um, we must say that these questions, the questions properly asked, drive our lives. And then we look for answers. And in this process, we know what things are and how we can live life to our fullest potential. And if you want to know what we are all up to, please visit our website www.amitgoswami.org. You can write to us at info@amitgoswami.org. We'll be delighted to reply to you. You can ask us anything you wish. And also remember that we have a master's, PhD, and certificate programs for which we are still taking interests for our next upcoming session. In that area also, if there is any question, please let us know. Thank you very much for being here today. Hope to see you next week again. Thank you so much.